Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whenever you're watching or listening to this, and welcome to Link Up Leaders, your direct link to leaders in supply chain and e-commerce. My name is Lisa Kinski. I'm your producer and co-host, and joined as always by Francois Jeffrey. Francois, good morning. All of a sudden, my camera is super fuzzy. What is that about?
I was going to say, what do you have to wipe it off or something?
No, it was perfectly fine a minute ago. Let me try to just white it out. It needs to focus. What is happening?
It's having the Friday feels. It is ready to be done with this week.
It's so ready to be done. This week has been crazy. Excuse me while I try to clean my screen with my jacket. Well, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. It is 12:30. It's 12:34. 1, 2, 3, 4. Actually,
it is.
Well, it's fine. Yeah, we have a lot of our listeners that don't have to worry about it too.
That's true. The audio experience is none the wiser to my parents. Maybe this is Jesus being like, "Girl, you didn't put on makeup today. They don't need to see you. This is the best it's gonna get." I'm not mad about it.
No. It's but it's a glorious Friday. It's came back to Pittsburgh. Weather is great in the high 50s, low 60s. It's my fiance's birthday tomorrow.
There than it is here.
Probably, yeah.
Holy crap.
So I'm rocking the for anyone that does the horoscopes, her Aries mug that she loves.
Zodiac signs, very close.
Zodiac signs. But no, it's great. I'm very excited. So I mean, again, Prosper, the show that quite literally will never end on our podcast. I think.
Until next year.
Super excited for our guest today. But before we bring them on, how is your day? How is your Friday?
Friday's good so far. I'm very tired. I'm dog sitting for my friends again, and you've seen the memes of the dogs when they're on top of you and you have no room. I literally laid sideways in the bed last night because they were all up in my business. And then man, my allergies are so bad right now. I don't know what's going on. I'm taking my pill every day, but it's just the weather down here is really messing with me. But other than that, it's a good Friday. We've got a lot of work to do. We have the pod and then a lot of work to do. And then I'm going to go to the gym and then volunteering tomorrow. And you get to celebrate Kate's birthday. But you said Kate was leaving town.
Tuesday. She's going to Fort Lauderdale for a bachelor. Yeah. So I'm coming back to Atlanta Monday. She's leaving Tuesday. But yeah, we're doing a karaoke night tomorrow at this fun Japanese bar restaurant. And it was a good time last time. So yeah, it's really fun. But speaking of birthdays, actually, and it's sort of a transition into our guest. Which our guest is the VP of, I believe, the Amazon channel at Vari. And it's Vari itself might not be very familiar, but Varidesk specifically is something that I absolutely love. I got it for my birthday 3 years ago. By the way, this is not a sponsored ad, but
but it could.
It could be. I got it for my birthday 3 years ago. Kate got it for me, and I was living in California at the time, and I literally always complained about my back because just the desk was so weird. And it was a game changer. It wasn't like the standing desk, but it's one of those pull-ups where you could put your monitor and your keyboard, and you can save so much space on your actual desk. And I know a lot of our listeners are, they work from home, or they're probably crunched over their computer since it is all online. If you don't have one of these, go to Amazon right now and type in Varidesk, and you will see the craziest selection of back savers that you could possibly imagine. But no, that was a little sidetracked, but a game changer. I know you don't have one. We might have to try to get you one at the office.
I would love to have one, please. But I also want one of those under desk treadmills, though, so I can get my steps while I'm working. Because I know that the standing desks help your posture, but I have this really bad habit, especially if I'm holding a kid or a dog. I've noticed this. I really do it. I stand with my hips really pushed forward. So I'm putting a lot of pressure on my low back. And I notice I do that a lot. So I would need the postural thing and the treadmill and the Varidesk to get everything finally fixed, and to go to the chiropractor that I pay for.
We're thinking about getting the one that actually push the button and it raises and lowers.
I love those.
Only because I don't have enough space on my current desk, or it's the one here at least, it's too short for the standing one. So Kate's going to use it.
Is it too short for that? It's not deep enough?
Yeah, it's not deep enough, but that's
Really?
okay. That's an excuse to go
Oh,
back
it would
and get one of
never.
those.
My desk would never be deep enough for it.
One of
Then.
those like the button ones.
The hydraulic ones.
Yeah, and it's not even expensive. And
No.
that's the craziest part when I was checking it out this morning. But complete sidetrack, not an ad. But if you don't have one, go get yourself a Varidesk today.
Yes, but the original segue that you were looking for was tomorrow is Kate's birthday, and tomorrow is also our guest's son's birthday.
Yes.
So we have that in common. So let's go ahead and bring him on. And the reason we brought up Prosper is because he was one of the speakers in our panel from the Prosper show in Vegas. Matt Snyder. Matt, hello. Welcome to this chaos that we call Link Up Leaders.
Hello. So glad to be here. And I've enjoyed hearing all the great conversation about the wonderful products from Varia and our Varidesk products. So now you know who to call though. Like if you need a new desk, like just you got the inside hookup now.
Hey, when we are going to use that too.
I will take you up on that.
At the old office, he did have a way deeper desk that fits, I guess you would call it like the desktop laptop riser, for lack of a better term. And it does have the separate keyboard holder, and it does the thing. Yeah. And I'd come into the office half the time and he was on it. And I have to believe David Dayon has one too, because he's always standing, filming New York Hustle Radio. And anytime, they just did a webinar, Ecom Cooperative did with, oh my gosh, like Pearl Ausch and Liron and so many people were on it. I watched it. It was international expansion, but he's always standing. And I'm like, you can't have your whole situation standing all the time.
I'm
standing right now.
You're standing right now.
I've got my what you were just talking about, the electric push button. I push what button? It rises up to my standing height.
It's crazy.
My wife uses this as well too. So we have her setting for her. And
I was going to say, you can have preset users, right? Like seats and fancy cars.
What?
I like
exactly.
That.
And we've got the great monitor arms that'll, get your monitors off your desk, get your laptop off your desk. And we even have we've got these cool little, what we call our active chairs. So it allows you kind of keep instead of when you need to rest your feet or your hips or whatever, you kind of perch more like a bar stool, but it wobbles back and forth, side to side.
Which that's what you do, Lisa.
Yeah.
You sit up closer to the edge.
I do. I really do. I've never noticed I do that. Or if I'm sitting in a non-desk chair, I'm constantly either in fire log, which is where you have one calf stacked over the other in yoga, or I've got one foot kicked in like I do now. Yes. And I honestly, I do it while I'm driving too. It's really not good. But I'm constantly making these adjustments for my back. I just need to go to the chiropractor that I pay for. But
we have great task chairs, and they're, task chairs are phenomenal. But what typically happens when you get into a normal chair is you start getting into this motion, right? And next thing you're leaning all over. And so with the active chair, why I love it is, it keeps your core engaged. You get to, move around a little bit. I'm always moving like this. And so then when you're ready, you stand right back up, and you really don't have to change your desk height at all. You can just keep it.
Yeah.
It's at.
Especially in an age where everything that you run for your business, particularly in e-commerce, which we focus on, is done on your computer. You're hunched over right after you wake up. Right, you're eating, you're probably hunched over. You're late at night after watching TV and you have a bunch of orders that you just have to check up on, you're hunched over. It's a game changer. When did Vari start?
So the backstory on Varidesk, so it started out of another company. Our owners, one of them had back pain, and literally started working off of a cardboard box. So I think a lot of people had that kind of same home hack of putting your laptop on top of a cardboard box and was working off of that. So this company is the name of it is called Jimmy, and so Jimmy is a product development company. A lot of people know of them from they were the creators of the Big Mouth Billy Bass talking fish. So if you recall, this little fish that on the plaque
on the walls. Oh my! I loved and hated those things. Walking by it, and it just starts. Yeah.
I get a kick out of them. I love them. They're so funny.
So you can thank them for that, and you can thank them for holiday yard inflatables. So everything you see at Christmas and Halloween and Thanksgiving, those are all the creations of Jimmy.
Just the inflatables, or are they also responsible for the wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube man?
Yeah, well, that's not for that, but you can thank them for all the your neighbor's 20-foot snowman that comes from Jimmy. And so, anyways, they're obviously phenomenal product developers, and so they were working off the cardboard box, and they're we're product developers. We can do better than a cardboard box.
Yeah.
And they went out, bought a couple of different desks, and they're like, these things are so hard to put together. They're big and bulky, and so they had this idea. The idea of kind of what Francois was talking about, something that would go on top of your existing desk, allow you to sit or stand, fully assembled when it comes out of the box. And so that was, 2012, 13-ish, where we live in Dallas, Texas, where there's a lot of other big headquarters. They went, showed it to like the Mary Kay company, showed it to Container Store, and everybody was like, we love this thing. Like we'd buy for all of our staff. And so it caught on like wildfire. I think I don't know the latest numbers, but we've sold to 99% of the Fortune 500 companies out there. We've sold to over 160 countries. Well over 3 million of our original converter have been sold. And today we do full office products, from the converters to our electric desks, task chairs, walls. So we provide full services now in terms of installations. Walls, yes.
So like dividers?
Yeah, well, think about it. If you're like in your space, traditionally, like you build out all these different like traditional walls that are permanent.
Right.
Well, I think especially now, like where offices are much more flexible, and they want to be able to have, for us, as we are growing really quickly, we wanted to be able to kind of adapt our space or change the space based off of kind of how the company was evolving. So our walls put together, think of like Legos. Like there's no tools. You have posts, panels, just connect them together, so you can create your space and recreate your space as your company grows. And then it keeps for us as we're always changing. It's less sheetrock then that you got to put up, tear down, goes out to the landfill. So it's definitely much more in terms of environmentally friendly, be able to use it, but then also allows the business owner to flex their space and change it. And if you move out, you can take your walls with you and put them in your space.
I love that. You said walls. I really thought y'all had a fold out Murphy bed style.
Oh, okay.
Well, okay. There's a new product idea. We'll share that with the team for the home office.
Exactly. Yeah, just like for apartment offices. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Because my office is also my spare room, and it's like it's not tight, but it's like if somebody's got to bring a bunch of luggage in there, it's like gonna get kind of cramped pretty quickly. If I can just fold that thing up into the wall, please.
See, I fully pictured it like they have the Varidesk, and it was like a Varidesk wall where it's like you could turn it into a cubicle sort of thing if you wanted. Like you just needed to like focus, and you didn't want to be able to see the person in front of you or something like that. Just sort of pulls up.
Yeah. Oh, like the privacy thing in like a limo.
Like a privacy. Yeah, that sort of thing.
Oh.
All new ideas.
Like that idea
by the way, royalties back to link up leaders. Don't forget that, okay, Matt? But I did want to sort of hit on, and I know there's probably a lot more so to the history, but the converters themselves, you mentioned they come fully assembled. When I got mine, it was first of all, it was in great packaging. It was very like stable when you open the box, but it was heavy in the sense that I couldn't imagine that it's easy to ship those types of products in today's environments, at least with oversized packages and overweight items being so easy to transport, and UPS, FedEx, all these carriers making it difficult, particularly for 3PLs, but I think for everyone, Amazon as well, for oversized items. I guess, did you guys feel any of those impacts when it comes to the shipping?
Yeah, so we are not FedEx's favorite customer. At least the drivers, I think they probably curse us every time they see one of our boxes come through. But FedEx has actually been a really good partner for us over the years, and so everything you've outlined is definitely like pain points that we've had to solve for. And so we start off as a direct to consumer brand, and doing that, not being reliant on Amazon, where they provide a great service called Fulfilled by Amazon, FBA. What that forced us to do then is go out and build out this infrastructure with the carrier, with our internal operations, and for us, we use a 3PL, so third-party logistics provider. That forced us then to kind of think through, how do you effectively do this in a way that makes it easy for the customer, because we also have to think about the return. So if there's a damage with the product or any type of reason to return it, the reverse part of that is also just as challenging. So There were obviously some pain points early on, but in doing so, what it really allowed us to do is, as we began to expand our sales channels, as we went and started selling on Amazon and on Wayfair and these other places, it allowed us then to kind of take the lessons we learned, shipping directly ourselves, and apply that then to what we do today with Amazon Seller Fulfilled Prime. And it's really been a key advantage for us over these last several years, as everyone's been talking about supply chain, and in early 2020, it was Amazon FBA was doing inventory restrictions, and these lead times of taking inventory, 2, 3, sometimes 4 months to get fully received. Like, we were able to bypass all those challenges because we had our own 3PL network. But yes, you're right. I mean, there was a lot of kind of early pain points early on of being able to set that all up. But it's also then now brought us a lot of benefits. And it also helps us on the customer experience side. If you've ever tried to return something to Amazon, Amazon will give you a call tag, and you can take it back to a UPS store, or you can take it to a Kohl's or a Whole Foods now. Well, try imagine taking that Varidesk that you ordered, packing that into your car, and trying to take that to a UPS store. Like, that's a really, really poor customer experience.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
They're thick. They're heavy.
They're thick.
Yeah.
And especially like one of our electric desks. I mean, these come in 2 boxes. The top weighs nearly 100 pounds. Like, that's just like,
whoa.
There's no way that somebody could load that in their car and take it back. So as a merchant fulfiller, we're able to work with FedEx. We can send the customer a label. We can have the driver pick it up from their house. That just allows us then to have a much better customer experience.
Absolutely.
Both sending it to them and as well as coming back. So
yeah, we just had someone on for reverse logistics, and that itself is just such a it was called Return Logics or Reverse Logics.
Yeah, it was Return Logics. It was Chuck.
With an X. Yeah.
Yeah, with an X. Yes.
With an X. And when they were talking about it, just it's fascinating to think how much goes into just the reverse logistics side, right?
Yes.
How much you can improve what you're touching on, particularly the customer experience of thinking through, hey, these are big, heavy items. If they're returning it, they're probably already not happy about something. That's one opportunity you could find out what they're not happy about. Or could just be, hey, we didn't actually need it, whatever the case was. But it's an opportunity to continue improving on that customer experience so they stay as a lifetime value customer. That's something that I don't think you get a huge benefit with when it comes to Amazon. It's really, hey, this person's returning it. The Amazon customer is probably just clicking the first button that they see for the return itself. And it's just very disconnected, right? Very transactional. It's, hey, just take it. I don't care about it. But you're right. It is a big pain point having to go to like UPS and lug these, we call them thick, but they're extremely sturdy. That you probably wouldn't have to worry about otherwise. But when it comes to Amazon, you mentioned that you guys moved from direct to consumer to Amazon. Why did you make that move?
Sure. Yeah. Obviously, I think a lot of times brands love to, they would love to stay direct to consumer, as long as they can. Obviously, it's more profitable for us having that relationship with the customer, as we just talked about, with returns. When you can have that dialogue with the customer, it's such a better experience because you can really make sure you're addressing the issue with them. At the same time, you get the feedback. A lot of our product development came from feedback from our customers. You guys, we were kind of joking before. We're talking about, could you have this partition pop up, right? Like, that's the type of feedback you don't get if all the process is managed with Amazon or with another retailer.
Yeah.
Having that direct connection with the customer is so critical in terms of, one, making sure that they're satisfied, that they're returning customer that lifetime value. But then it's also just in the development and creation of your product. You get so many great ideas interacting with those customers. But we also definitely saw that there's a huge market on Amazon. There's a lot of customers who just prefer to shop on Amazon. So we definitely approached it in a way that we wanted to meet the customer where they prefer to have their shopping. Today, we still manage to drive most of our sales off of Amazon. The biggest part of our sales is still through our web store, still through our B2B services. But for that customer who does prefer to shop there, we have a great experience for them, and it's been I don't want to say partnership, but it's been a great sales channel for us over the years. But it also allows us to, in many cases, maybe win that customer on Amazon, give them a great experience, and the next time they come back, they actually go to Varia.com, and we get to engage with the customer direct. So I'm sure when you order your Varidesk, you had a nice little welcome kit, had these nice little like hooks and these little things here, like people love this, like these little things that just draw more brand awareness, and those are the type of things that there's such a big pool of customers on Amazon that you can engage with. That the more you build that brand awareness, the more likely they are next time to go and go to Vari. Let me see what else they have.
I think that is a huge mistake that a lot of brands make, is not investing in that further branding. In that, let's say it comes with a koozie, even if it's nothing related to the product itself, or if it comes with a very high quality welcome kit. I was just listening to someone that was part of the early team in Apple with Steve Jobs, and they were talking about how Jobs was so obsessed with just this experience of unboxing and the packaging that goes into it, and how a customer feels even when they're doing that. That is something that I felt when I opened up my Varidesk, and that's why I was so keen and so excited even when we were at Prosper to know that you were with that team, because it was just a very, very fulfilling experience of opening this box, seeing that, hey, they invest in this, they care. It's more than just something cheap that, I mean, you look at the alternatives, there's many alternatives out there, but they wouldn't deliver that same experience. I couldn't relate to them as much. So kudos to your marketing team and your product team, really, on that.
Yeah, no, we have a fantastic team, and it's everything you said is 100% accurate. And when we've done surveys, and we the feedback we've gotten from, I've said customers, we actually call our customers fans, because we see them as fans of our brand. The number one word used and our surveys back to us is love. Like I love my Varidesk, and to us, like that's like the ultimate win is like when they relate to it that way, versus it's just sure, there's other competitive products out there that are lower cost, and those certainly we battle with them all the time for sales, but focusing on the quality and the experience is what drives that love or that connection with the brand and the product. And you were asking earlier in terms of like, what's the value, or like why, kind of the strategy behind selling on Amazon, and as a product matures and a market matures for these D2C brands, I think the other thing you have to consider is if I was not selling on Amazon, right, I do have these other competitors, these lower cost competitors that are definitely filling up that market space. And so if Vari as a brand is not there, there's definitely going to be a lot of traffic that's going and looking for us and looking for our products. And if they can't find us, the likelihood is they're going to buy one of my competitors, right? And so that's why I see so often with other direct-to-consumer brands that are so concerned or fearful of going on Amazon, of, man, I'm just going to shift all my customers over to Amazon. And there's certainly truth to that. But do a Google search of your company with the word Amazon tied to it, and I can almost guarantee you within the top 4 search results, it's be a link that says an Amazon link back to a search term on Amazon.com full of your competitors. And that's where it's to the point now as a direct consumer brand, is you have to be there just as a brand defense, because if you're not there, your competitors are, and Amazon's doing a really good job of going out into Google and other search platforms to be present when customers are looking for your brand, and are driving all that traffic back to Amazon. And if you're not there, all your competitors are picking up those sales.
Yeah, definitely.
And when you were expanding into sort of this omni-channel strategy, I guess what challenges were there? Obviously, when you're direct to consumer, you understand just about all of your costs, even when you're working with partner 3PLs. But moving into Amazon, it's a whole different beast, right? You have to get product into their warehouses. And this is another topic that we could definitely talk about for SFP or seller fulfilled prime versus, FBA that's fulfilled by Amazon in their own warehouses. But I guess, can you walk us through that operational process that you went through or your team went through to get products onto Amazon, sell through Prime, and I guess maintain that channel?
Yeah, I would say as companies begin to think about their omni-channel approach, this is it's very critical that you start asking the right questions internally. And this is something we kind of talked about a little bit about this at the Prosper conference. Is there's a lot of internal discussion that needs to happen before you go out and start interviewing other 3PL or other service providers, because you need to have your internal plan ready to go out and ask the right questions to these service providers. So as we approach this, and again, we're a little different from some other sellers because of our product size. We're large, we're bulky, we're heavy. So our solution would be different from somebody who has a $40 product that's a pound, right? So again, it's you got to have the internal kind of analysis of what's your product sizing, your volume, all those play a factor. For us, as we started looking at this, we did a cost analysis. So you can go onto Amazon, we can use the FBA calculator, we can kind of start to determine our cost of knowing what what my handling fees, storage fees, etc. For us, then we also then considered, yes, Amazon is going to be a big portion of our sales. But we also have our own D2C site, and we also have a corporate sales side that moves a lot of volume. So if we were to go the FBA route, we're now going to be taking a large percentage of our inventory, and we're going to be removing it from being able to sell that through our corporate sales channel or selling it through our D2C site. And we're going to be putting that into this FBA, spreading that across the various locations. And at the time, this was back in 2017. We also had concerns about tax nexus. That's a little different story today, but at the time, that was definitely a big consideration for us because having that inventory in FBA does trigger tax nexus. So it's still something for brands to be considering, especially if you're coming from that D2C side. You have to take that into consideration. If you're only collecting tax in the state that you're operating in, by going into Amazon FBA, as that inventory gets spread across the U.S., that can trigger state tax nexus for you. So definitely, that's one of the kind of the loophole, trigger points or things like that brands don't think about as they start expanding into the Amazon space.
Pardon my ignorance, but what is tax nexus?
Sure. So we're based in Texas, right?
Uh-huh.
So because we operate in Texas, tax nexus means that we are responsible for collecting any sales tax for orders placed in the state of Texas. So outside of that, just again hypothetical here, we wouldn't necessarily have to collect tax for an online purchase that was, say, in California. Now there's a lot of different laws which particularly normally would trigger that need for us to collect tax in California. It would be, we have inventory in California, we have a place of business in California. And in this case, by using Amazon FBA and having that inventory in an FBA facility in California say, you now have a presence in the state, and that triggers tax, what's called tax nexus. But that doesn't apply just to your Amazon sales, that applies to all of your sales. So now all of your your D2C sales, as well as your corporate sales, would be responsible for state tax.
Got it.
So at the time, that's also, it's a little complex, very complex.
Yeah.
So that was a big consideration for us as we were thinking about FBA versus keeping our own 3PL, where now we can control where that inventory is. We can control what would trigger tax nexus for us at the time.
Sure.
And so, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm just continue. So that was also a big consideration for us. But then also, you kind of hit on this a little earlier, was just that lead time. The more that you, again, knowing we have an omni-channel sales approach, taking that inventory out, and putting into an Amazon fulfillment center, which again, that lead time is anywhere from 4 weeks to 8 weeks or more. Well, that just increases now the capital that I have to have into my inventory, because I've got roughly another 30 days, 45 days of sellable inventory that's not sellable. So by not having or doing everything merchant fulfilled, I've just lowered my inventory that I have to keep on hand, because as soon as it comes in from from our supply chain, it's sellable and ready to go, and I've removed that receiving time that you would typically have with Amazon.
And the operational costs, right, of palletization, of hiring freight to move it to Amazon, of Amazon's additional warehouse costs that you would have to take into consideration. And now, prior to moving into Amazon, were you already operating under sort of this 1 to 2 day shipping time?
We were not. No. Originally it was traditionally, we would ship your order out within 2 to 3 days, and then everything would be ground shipping. So generally we would tell people 5 to 7 days, to receive your product. And that's actually still kind of true on our web store. We on Amazon we do offer a faster speed of service. And I think that is a reason that a lot of people, sometimes we get customers that go and buy on Amazon versus our own web store. And it's something we're actually looking at testing right now, as if we can match that speed of service on our web store, would we see that customer come back and purchase from us direct versus Amazon? And especially in this case, like where I can turn my Prime service off for a couple of days and see, and then kind of measure, what is that customer behavior response different? How's it differ? And because I think you're right, because it's a lot of people do shop on Amazon, yes, because they trust it's a trusted partner or place to purchase, but they also are addicted to the speed. And that's forced everybody else in this industry to perform better and to provide better service. And I think that is something for brands to consider. And it is costly, and it requires you to have a really well operation system. I don't see how you could do that shipping from one location. We ship from four locations across the U.S. that allow us to get within a low zone coverage to reach that customer with ground service and offer 2-day shipping using ground versus having to do everything air or express. So yeah, I think that's something we're actually in the process right now of trying to test that out on our own website, of increase the speed and see if that can draw customers.
Yeah. I don't know. It's nice to have everything. And you're right. Like Amazon has kind of trained everybody to be so used to this super quick shipping, but I feel like consumers are still kind of like understanding and more willing to wait a little bit longer for a way bigger thing. Like I'm not going to order a
like
couch.
furniture.
Like I'm not going to order a couch and expect it to be delivered in 2 days, or even like, I don't know, depending on how big the coffee table is, especially if it's something that's coming already assembled. It's not going to be.
Well, that's a different type of, they're just different types of consumers, right? Like when my mom was shopping for a couch about a year ago, and this is like height of supply chain issues with furniture coming from overseas. They said about 2 months. We went to a few like local, smaller, not chains, but just small mom and pop furniture stores. And they're like, we'll deliver it next day for $75. She was like, okay, I mean, it's about the same price, but I have it in, the next day instead of having to not have anywhere to sit. So I think it does depend on the product, depends on the consumer. I ordered a knockoff speaker from overseas, and it just got here in I think like 25 days, but I'm saving like $300 because it's an alternative to like a JBL speaker. And it works fantastic. But so to the point of sort of getting back on track, because we do like to get sidetracked here, getting back on track with like the let's say 1 to 2 days shipping and the multiple zones, just for any Amazon sellers that maybe are not familiar with zones, can you break that down for us a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. So again, with self-fulfilled Prime, we are held to the same standard that Amazon would have for their own Prime service. So we have to provide, a certain percentage of 1 day and 2 day coverage to our customers. So for us to meet that at a profitable point, we have to try, just like Amazon is, we have to try and get our warehouses as close to the customer as possible. And so from there, then to meet that 1 day or 2 day promise, FedEx is going to determine where's the customer based at versus where do you have your inventory at, or where are you shipping from. And so if you think of it kind of as a radius, your zones, the lower is like a zone 2 would be you're fairly close to that customer, and I could reach that customer within a 1 or 2 day service using just a ground service. If I went beyond that zone, that means you're further away. So a higher zone means you're further away out in the radius from your ship point. So that generally requires more of a second day service or express air service, which obviously is a lot more expensive. And so as we were thinking about this, we're looking at kind of a heat map. Where are we seeing most of our sales coming from, both on Amazon and our web store and corporate, and how do we get our fulfillment centers to be as close to those locations as we can? And for us, we ship exclusively with FedEx, and so it's also to think about how's the FedEx hub location next, in proximity to our 3PL, because think about California, LA area. If the hub is on the opposite end of LA from your 3PL, well, imagine they're picking up at 4:00 and then trying to get to the hub in the next hour, those are all things you have to kind of take into consideration of. Every minute in this case is very valuable. We have a very well automated system from orders coming from Amazon to our system to our 3PL, and any hiccup in that can cause us to miss that service level agreement. So it's a very tight ship you got to run in terms of monitoring and making sure that orders gets passed off all the way along from Amazon to your systems to your shipping partner, and then making sure that the pick packing is going the right waves, and then all the way then to the pickup and that distance from there to the hub and from the hub out. So there's a lot of kind of thought process that goes in, and again, that's all part of the kind of the very beginning planning stages of this, is asking those right questions, with your service provider, with your carrier, knowing that you're ultimately, what the goal is down the road is to be able to offer that 1 day, 2 day service, but doing it in a way that's profitable to you as the company.
For sure. Thank you so much for asking that question. Thank you so much for explaining that, because I really thought, somebody mentioned zones to me the other day, and I really thought the country was just broken up into zones.
It is. Yeah,
okay.
It's broken up into 1 through 8, I believe. So
maybe I misunderstood. So I thought if you were needing to deliver something in Minnesota and you had a 3PL or a fulfillment center in Minnesota, then you were within zone 1 of that location. I thought it was kind of a moving target depending on where you're trying to deliver to.
Oh, I thought it was. Oh, go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, so there, within, I guess, the use of using, say, like a FedEx or a UPS, the way they're going to talk about your zones is saying, is like zone 2 is generally what you're just going to consider like a ground service, and so that's based off of your ship point. So it's not necessarily cutting the country up into different locations or zones. It's the distance out from where you're shipping from.
Okay, so it is the proximity.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess there's 2 ways to describe it, right?
Yeah. So
because go ahead.
When you go into like Amazon, and you're going to set up your shipping template, it's going to ask you what zone do you want to apply for ground service, for air service, second day service. And so for us, our goal is always get zone 2, reach ground service with as much as we can for zone 2, because that means that I can get that second day service using ground and not having to go to the second day. And so, yes, so again, as I'm thinking about it, like our 4 different locations, it's that kind of the expansion out from that ship point is your kind of your zone radius.
Got it. Okay. Got it.
And one important point that you mentioned in the story is sort of the connectivity between Amazon, between your partners. It's a question that I know that our 3PL team doesn't get very frequently. It's more, usually it's centered around pricing. I mean, just being completely frank, for anyone that goes out to, and particularly here in the US, it's always like, hey, tell me your price first. I'm going to go with the cheapest and then I'll go from there, which is a big mistake. I think a huge mistake, first of all. But what sort of systems and technologies do you have, and we don't need anything proprietary, but sort of, I guess, can you walk us through the technologies that are used in order to meet this seller fulfilled prime?
Yes, it's a very good point in terms of like talking about pricing when you're talking to your 3PL, because I think it's certainly an important factor, but maybe the least one of the lower important factors as you're considering them. And it's funny now, like some of these like logistics companies are calling themselves more of a technology company, because the technology piece has become so critical and important to the infrastructure here. So it's again, this is it's going to vary based off of kind of how your business is set up. But there are great resources out there that, in terms of API tools or plugins that would allow you to connect your Amazon account to, in this case, for us, it's our ERP system. So we're built off of SAP and Salesforce. We've previously used NetSuite, so it doesn't matter what you're using internally for your ERP for kind of your order management. There's plugins out there. So we've used one called Varia when we were at NetSuite. We're using a different service now. But what that allows you to do then is basically, as orders get released into your Seller Central account, it's grabbing it immediately. It's pulling it into your system, to your, in this case, say NetSuite or SAP. And in that case, what we're doing is we're kind of batching those orders. And about every 30 minutes, then we're releasing that batch to our warehouse. So it's an order flow system that's constantly, pinging Amazon, grabbing orders, putting into our system, batching those together. And the reason we bring straight into our system first is, again, we're shipping from 4 locations. So we then have to kind of take into consideration, where's the customer? Where do we have inventory? We hope that we have our inventory balanced so that we have, all of our products across all 4 locations. But there's times where, maybe Georgia is out of this particular product. So then what's the next closest? Is it Texas? Is there a Pennsylvania location? And so it's then going to route that order to the next closest location. But what we're trying to do is route those orders to the closest warehouse location. And then our warehouse then, and this is where we're talking about as you're evaluating a 3PL partner, I feel like the technology side may be the most critical part, because to make this all run and to keep it running efficiently, you have to have very strong developer capabilities on that 3PL side. So in this case, as a self-fulfilled prime, they're taking the order. Once we hand it off to them, their team is then going and making an API call to Amazon to create that shipping label, to close out the order. And that takes, we can't do that development work because it's in their internal system. And we started working with other partners that were maybe a little bit more not as technical on the development side. And we were constantly running into problems with issues on their side and their connection to Amazon to be able to complete that order process. So as we were looking at a new provider, that was definitely one of the things we considered was what's their capabilities from a technology standpoint to go out and complete integrations with Amazon, with our own internal SAP ERP system and other channels. So to us, that was just as important as the cost, and paying a little bit more to make sure that you have the right team. I think it's definitely more important than maybe saving a couple cents on your picking and packing. So
sure. Yeah.
The risk cost analysis is one piece that I think the more mature the business gets, the more you sort of look into it, right? What are the costs and risks associated with anything really for your business?
Because if there's a hiccup in any of that process and we miss, then Amazon's going to come back to us and they're going to turn off our Prime service, for a period of time. And when we lose that Prime service, that's like a 15 to 25% drop in revenue. So, a week of no Prime, there goes the cost difference between saving a couple of cents on your picking and packing.
Yeah.
It's much greater loss on the revenue side.
Absolutely.
And revenue affects every piece of it. And this is really why I love the fact that we incorporate e-commerce and supply chain, is because the revenue side affects, your 3PL partners because you're all of a sudden not moving as much product. It affects your suppliers because now you're not ordering as much product too. So it's relationships between the entire supply chain that every single action or decision point that you make is critical, and especially on 3PL and fulfillment, it's the closest piece to the customer that you could get. And so when it comes to, we sort of mentioned that technology is the most important part when you're assessing the 3PLs, but what about the operations? I guess, what questions are you asking around, you have the technologies, that's all good and great, but how are you picking and packing? Is it done in those 30-minute intervals? Are you able to, are you taking care of them the next morning? Are you open on Saturdays and Sundays even?
Yes. So great question. And for us, the way we kind of approach that is we actually kind of wrote out our own SOP of here's how to manage our Amazon business. Here's how the pick, packing, and process would need to be completed. And so that's part of the kind of the evaluation of, would you be willing to give us a dedicated team? That's so we have our web store, we have our corporate sales, and there's a process that gets followed for those orders, and we have a separate process that has to be followed for Amazon. So we have a dedicated team that as people get hired on, and obviously there's a lot of turnover, employee shift at a 3PL, but we have a documented, so as somebody gets onto our Amazon team, like they're trained on how to manage and pick, pack, and ship for Amazon specifically. And that's all the way from the pick, packing, pulling the orders, doing the pick, packing, labeling, to how it gets loaded on the truck. And we have we have separate trucks that are there for our Amazon business, and a truck that's there for our web and corporate sales, and how they get packed on the truck. All that is part of our SOP to ensure that as it gets received at the hubs, those orders and that trailer has a priority over the others to ensure that we can hit that SLA with Amazon. So for us, it was more about having a document that we go to them and show and ask, can we hold you guys accountable to this? And we do. Like we have a person on our team who's dedicated to making sure that they're following the process we have outlined for them and holding them accountable to that performance metric.
And SLAs, for those of you that might not be aware, are just service level agreements that both you and your service provider are agreeing to mutually. You might tell them, hey, I'm going to move this certain amount of volume from you, and the service provider might be saying, hey, we'll do that, and we'll do it within the guidelines that you're setting, which you guys have created for them. That's awesome. That's essentially giving them all the tools to be optimal for your business, right. Which is, cuts out a lot of those risks of, anytime a human can make their own decision, there's room for human error, right? And if you just make all those decisions for them, we were just talking to Manish about this also, and from Kahoot. He was also on the panel for the FBA alternatives, and he was talking about how those guidelines are sort of prepared for 3PLs and for seller partners within his network, and it just seems to be a critical component in order for you to run a successful partnership with your 3PL. But a follow-up question to that is sort of, why not do it yourself? Why not have your own operations and warehouses in these strategic areas?
Yeah, I think there also could be some advantages to doing ourselves, but I think it's also kind of, I think about this and kind of rephrase the question of, why do brands sell to different distributors, or why do brands what's your core competency? For us, our core competency is great, manufacturing great products, product design, and that's where we want to put our focus, and we want to put our capital to work and creating great products. It is very costly to set up your own warehouse and to have the infrastructure and the staffing to run that. So as we approach this, knowing that let's find a partner who's very good at the pick, packing, and shipping. They've invested, a lot of resources and capital into having the right, infrastructure, locations, and for us, it's obviously, as we evaluated, it made more cost-effective sense to find a 3PL partner versus trying to do this ourselves. And again, I think that answer could vary based off of kind of the scale of your business. And I know plenty of great sellers out there who who've approached it and they manage them themselves, and I think that works great. It can work great for you. I think for us, just given more of our sales on the corporate side and some of the services we provide, finding a 3PL partner made more sense for us. And one thing I was going to add on kind of the prior question around the SOP is there will be problems. Like as you mentioned, the human error, like it is going to occur. And while we have somebody who's dedicated to working with that 3PL partner and making sure they're following it, when a problem does happen, what's the most important thing you could do is understand why. Go back to them, and they're going to give you some basic answer or response as to what happened. Of, the truck didn't show up, and well, why? Like you've really got to drill down, and this is one of the things I've learned from Amazon, that it's a pain when you get kicked off of the self-fulfilled Prime program, because you got to provide this what's called an after action plan. And it's you have to get very detailed in it. But what that's helped me learn is, how do I go back and ask those right questions then to our 3PL partner, to our carrier, to really drill down to what was the root cause of this, how do we change it so that doesn't happen again. And that's the most important thing you do, is when you have these problems, is they're going to happen, but learn from it, change your SOP, make sure if there's retraining that has to happen, you're doing that. And the likelihood of that happening again is greatly reduced. But if you just if you don't really push it, both on your 3PL as well as your carrier, the most likely it's going to happen again.
Yeah, I forget who it is that says to ask why 5 times. It's I
was about to say you could track down any root cause. You could
5
break
whys.
apart with the 5 whys, no matter what. Yeah, I learned that from an advisor and professor back in school. It's just a very simple way to discover a multitude of problems along the way. Is just asking 5 whys, and you'll get to the root of it.
You'll get there. So we're nearing the end of the episode, but we do have to get to the bottom of one thing at least, right? So seller fulfilled Prime. I, being still somewhat green in the industry, it's been less than 2 years, and we don't work in the Amazon space directly day to day. So I'm, I get whatever information I get through this show and other webinars. I thought seller fulfilled Prime was new. I thought it was this fresh, shiny, new toy. I was incorrect. Matt educated me yesterday. So if a seller wants to get onto Seller Fulfilled Prime, or I guess if somebody wants to have their Amazon business enrolled in Seller Fulfilled Prime, whatever the correct terminology would be, can they, and how, and what do they need to prepare? I know it's a trick question, but
yeah. So I'll give a little context on the program. So it launched 2017-ish is when we got in, and I think what occurred was a lot of people joined the program thinking, yeah, it'll be great. I can do Prime for my own warehouse. It'll bypass the FBA and the cost to go with that. And there was a really poor experience for a lot of customers. So they closed the program from new accounts coming in. And then beginning in 2020, they upped the requirements, or the SLAs to maintain your status. So it has gotten really difficult. And I will say that the SFP program is not for all sellers. It's not for all products. It definitely is a great tool for those where the program fits your product and your sales channel. So today, the way I kind of see the state of it is, Amazon has reduced pretty significantly the number of sellers who are selling or using SFP. But I know a handful of sellers who are doing very well with this program. And I think that's what Amazon's trying to do, is they're trying to understand, what is the best fit for this program? What's the right seller? What's the right product? Because the products that do work, they don't want in their FBA centers. They don't want my product in there. They want that, £2, $50 product that is easy for their team to move. So I do feel like at some point they're going to open this program back up, but they're going to be much more restrictive of who they let in and what's the product fit for it. For others, though, as you think about it, and you mentioned Kahoot and and Deliver was another part of our panel. There are alternative programs out there now that didn't exist a couple of years ago. And for those other products that maybe aren't the right fit for SFP, I think those are good solutions, as alternatives to FBA. And I would encourage brands who are dependent on FBA. It's not that you have to choose one or the other. I really see this more as a hybrid. You can leverage FBA for the core of your business, and then use these other services if you want to go off into Walmart, or if you want to create your own D2C Shopify site, or so what a lot of sellers have had this last year or 2 years is they go out of stock while their inventory is getting received into Amazon. That's the worst thing that can happen to you. So have these these other channel partners, whether it be Deliver or Kahoot, who can sit there and be that merchant fulfillment solution for you in the interim while your inventory is getting received, so that you ensure that you don't get sold out on or go out of stock on Amazon and lose that flywheel effect that we always are so critical or focus on maintaining. So I think that again, Seller Fulfilled Prime may be open back up at some point. To prepare for that, the way I would tell brands is understanding how you would have to operate to beat those performance metrics, because you're going to have to be able to come into Amazon and show that here's my network of 3PL or warehouses. Here's the automations that I have in place to ensure that I can pick, pack, and ship within a number of hours. And here's the carrier systems that I have in place. You're going to have all that in place and make Amazon fairly confident that you can meet those service level agreements. They're not going to let you come in and say, yeah, I'm going to build this up over time. It's not going to happen.
Fool me once.
Well, Matt, thank you so much for sharing all of this today. I kind of recapped with each of you, but I don't know if the audience really realizes this is the first time that we've had just somebody representing a brand exclusively on the show, because we've had, service providers or maybe experts in the space that are doing consulting or courses that are also brand owners where they work with a brand, but this is the first time we've had a brand specific person. So I'm going to skip the question of what is the best fit client for you, because it makes no sense at all.
Anyone that has a computer
works at a desk.
Yes.
Well, and I guess that's a question. If they, I don't have the website prompt up and ready to go, because we're going to direct people to reach out to you via your LinkedIn, which is going to be linked in the show notes of this episode in case they have any questions or looking maybe for any guidance. But for Varidesk, you have all sorts of things. They can go buy them at varidesk.com.
Vari.com. So VARI, Vari.com. So we did a rebrand. We were Varidesk. We rebranded just because we're no longer just a desk company. We sell the full office. So it's Vari.com.
The walls.
Yeah, the walls. Yeah. But so yes, I'm not necessarily a service provider, but I would share that I love these conversations. I love having this. When I go to Prosper and I go to these other shows, is I want to meet other sellers and I want to hear their story and their pain points. And if I can add value to it, I'd love to do that. And likewise, I want to share my pain points and somebody else is going to be able to help me. So I'm always willing to talk with any other seller who's interested in, FBM or Fulfilled by Merchant or SFP, like always open to just connect with other sellers and talk Amazon, because the more I give, I always get more back in return from them. So,
and there's no shortage of things to talk about when it comes to Amazon.
We all have different pains. There's a lot of common pains, but we all kind of have our own unique pain points as well.
The community is so awesome. I mean, as we saw at Prosper, it's just everyone is so open to talking about the problems. You don't find that really in any other industry other than e-commerce and specifically Amazon. I love it. And we love having these types of conversations too.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, Matt, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sorry,
really
what were you going to say?
I was going to say, thanks for inviting me. This has been a lot of fun.
Of course, it has for us too. And have fun celebrating your son's birthday. Which one is it?
His name is Cohen. So he's turning 15. So he's getting the driver's permit. It's a big birthday.
That is a big one. Big old 15. Oh man.
The rebel stage.
I remember being 15.
Yeah, no one liked me at 15, so we won't talk about 15.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Matt. And thank you for everybody who tuned in today. If you guys liked what you heard, be sure to give us a thumbs up, comment with your thoughts, share the show with your friends, subscribe to the show, and be sure to turn on those notifications. And that way you never miss a conversation with leaders in supply chain and e-commerce like Matt Snyder with Vari. So thank you all so much. Have a fabulous weekend. Happy birthday, Kate. Happy birthday, Cohen. And we will be back on Monday, I think, with Isabella Ritz. And then later next week again with Eddie. We have all sorts of fun people to talk to. So we'll see you guys again very soon.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.